Welcome to the Awesemo Early Bird Podcast. It's your old pal Emac coming to you with one Adam Ship My Money Share as we discuss the happenings on Thursday night's three-game NBA slate. Adam, are you back in the swing of things with the round ball?
Yeah, getting there. Last night had my first of what'll probably be many lineup import mistakes and screwed myself out of some lineups and ended up with some dead ones, but still getting in the swing of it. Can't really get worse going forward, so that's always a plus.
Indeed that is. So we've got three games tonight. Four of the teams involved have not yet played. One is on a back-to-back and one played in the opening night. For those of you that have not yet tried out Awesemo, if you use the promo code EARLYBIRD, you will get a 1-week free trial that will not count the Fantasy Cruncher add-on, but everything else will be available. We've got multiple projection sources. We have the Hot Magic, the former FanVice projections are still the FanVice projections. And then we've got Josh Engelman, who posts his. We have Fast Eddie Fear doing his cheat sheet rankings for cash games and GPPs. We have Awesemo doing his rankings for value and for production. And then we've got the deep dive article. We are just stocked behind the paywall. You've got to check it out. And then Slack. Slack was on fire tonight because many, and of course we're recording this the night before, but many of the websites out there were having a little bit of trouble. So we were just able to drop all of our needed files into the Slack chat and people could get the projections and articles as they saw fit. So that worked out well. So again, promo code EARLYBIRD. That'll let them know that you heard us here on the podcast. Adam, let's talk about our three games. We're going to lead off with the Chicago Bulls. This will be their opener. They're going against Philadelphia, who we saw on opening night. We know that Ersan Ilyasova and Marco Bellinelli are no longer with Philadelphia. We know that Wilson Chandler and Mike Muscala are the two new guys. They're both likely out with injury. Chandler for sure. We're waiting to see for Muscala, but he's still dealing with an ankle issue. We got to see Markelle Fultz start the game. We got to see J.J. Redick start the second half. Redick was gunning. I don't think this is going to hurt him too much, and it's nice to see him get a little more action there with the second unit, especially when some of their shooters went cold. We know Jared Bayless is out again. T.J. McConnell saw, I'm going to say 12 to 15 minutes. It was not that exciting, but it was something. And again, we're on a three-game slate, so we'll need to be poking around for a little bit of value. Landry Shamet got a couple minutes, did not do much with them. He's the rookie from Wichita State. And then Amir Johnson saw some time and actually wasn't too shabby. On the other side, we've got the Bulls. And let's see here. I lost my place. We know that Denzel Valentine and Felicio are both dealing with an ankle issue. We do not know their status yet. They're both listed as questionable. We know that Lauri Markkanen is going to be out. And we know that Wendell Carter Jr. is going to be starting. Oh, no, that means Jabari Parker coming off the bench, Adam. He's supposed to be the focal point of the second unit, but is his bad attitude going to lead to bad fantasy results? What are your thoughts in this game?
I mean, Chicago is a mess. They are just not a good team, but there are a couple of spots you can turn to for fantasy production. It's obviously a tough matchup against Philadelphia, a team much better than the Bulls are. They are a good defensive team as well. They have a lot of length, obviously. So it's not a great matchup, but Bobby Portis, anytime he's going to play in the mid to upper 20s, which is the case here, he is just a stat padding fantasy point per minute monster. So I think that he's, a pretty strong play. He's 5,700 on DraftKings. That's very reasonable for 26 to 28 minutes of Bobby Portis. You have Jabari Parker off the bench where he should get as much usage as he could hope for. He's only 5,200. That's another spot where he has plenty of upside. He shot really poorly in the preseason, but you don't expect that to continue moving forward. He's going to get back to what he is, and that's someone who scores and does absolutely nothing on the defensive end. But that's a useful player for fantasy purposes. So I like him a lot at 5,200. Then you get into guys that are a little bit more expensive with Zach LaVine and Chris Dunn, both in the mid $6,000 range. I like LaVine more than Dunn just because he is more of a scoring threat. He's the one I think that's more likely to go off and kind of take over a game. So between the two of them, I would side with Zach LaVine, and I would rank him third from this team behind Portis and Parker as far as guys that I'm interested in.
Yeah, the one thing about Dunn is you're kind of counting on those assists and steals to really get him there. And the steals might be there. I don't know. Philly's pretty decent now with their ball handlers. But the assists, your teammates have to make their shots to get assists. So he could be in a little bit of trouble. On the other side, how are you feeling about Dario Saric, who just owned the game for about 6 minutes and then got into foul trouble and was a DFS afterthought, very sadly. Do you think he inflicted enough pain for the Never Again crowd to have their first time to plant their flag?
Yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting spot because we saw Saric really suck against Boston. We saw Markelle Fultz disappoint in that game as well. And I think it's a good spot for both of those guys. Saric was in foul trouble. There's not really anything you can take away from that other than he's not going to score a lot of points when he's sitting on the bench in foul trouble. It's not like it's predictive moving forward. It is a good matchup for him against this Bulls team that is just not going to be playing defense this year. They were absolutely awful defensively in the preseason, as we would expect, and we should see more of that moving forward. So I do like Saric quite a bit. And then Markelle Fultz, you mentioned that J.J. Redick started the second half, and that's something that they are planning to do going forward. That makes Markelle Fultz really interesting in spots like this where they are playing a clearly inferior team in Philadelphia. There's a pretty good chance that this game gets out of hand at some point in the third quarter. Fultz coming off the bench means that he's going to be on the floor to start the fourth quarter most likely, and it helps secure his minutes even more. There's a chance that you see him out there getting blowout run and just piling up points to finish out the game. So I think it's an even more appealing spot than it already would be for Fultz because of the fact that he's not going to start the second half.
All right, let's talk about Wendell Carter Jr. He, of course, is the rookie. He was a seventh-round draft pick coming out of Duke. This season had a solid preseason, but tough task with Joel Embiid, already with one game under his belt, going to be the opposing center. They do, of course, have Robin Lopez on the bench who can come in if need be to slow things down. As we've mentioned, I don't think they're going to be able to stop the bleeding here. What do you think about Carter? Did you get to watch him at all in the preseason? And tough task for his first NBA start here.
I didn't watch him, but I know he did literally nothing. He didn't do anything offensively. Even when he got minutes, he was not someone that was putting up a lot of shots. I don't like the matchup here, obviously, against Embiid. It's just a really, really tough spot on both ends of the floor for Carter. So I don't have any interest in going there.
All right. Anything else you'd like to mention from our first game here?
Obviously, a really, really good spot for Embiid and for Simmons. I mean, they should both be able to get whatever they want. We saw Ben Simmons post a very impressive game in a difficult matchup against Boston. Now you have the Chicago team that was one of the worst in the NBA in transition last year. Simmons should be able to absolutely eat them up and get to the rim at will in transition, pick up stats there. So both of those guys, I think, are obviously really, really good plays. And then Robert Covington was very popular on that two-game opening night slate, and he disappointed in what was obviously a tough matchup for him. But the minutes are going to be there for Covington, and he's difficult to predict because he's so inconsistent with his shot. But against the Chicago team that is so bad defensively, he should have a lot of open looks. He should play big minutes, and they should turn the ball over and lead to defensive stats for him as well. So I think it's a good bounce-back game for Covington too.
All right. The other guy that was added from last year to Chicago is Chandler Hutchison. He is a rookie. No longer on the team are Jerian Grant, David Nwaba, and Noah Vonleh. They are in Orlando, Cleveland, and New York, respectively. So that's why we did not hit upon those names. As we continue down, we're going to see Miami going against Washington. Miami, of course, played on Wednesday night. We are recording this Wednesday night, so if there are any additional injury news or notes, we don't quite have those yet. We do know that coming into Wednesday's game that Justice Winslow and Wayne Ellington were both out, an ankle and a hamstring respectively. James Johnson's out with hernia surgery, and then Dion Waiters is out with ankle surgery. So that you'll want to monitor and see if anything's going to happen with Ellington or with Winslow, and then you'll want to know how well or how poorly the Hassan Whiteside played against Vucevic, because that was a great matchup for him in the past. He will be going against the Wizards, who have new acquisition, and I'm just going to turn it over to you because we're both Wizards fans. You are a lifelong fan. I pledged allegiance to the Wizards a couple years ago. We'll tell that story in a second. But we now have the fan of flatulence, the farting fanatic Dwight Howard, that candy-eating SOB, is now part of the Washington Wizards. What do you think is going to happen with him and Whiteside on Thursday night?
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how Howard fits. I mean, we didn't see him in the preseason. At least I don't remember if he played the first or second game. I know he didn't play to close out the preseason. So it's still a new fit for him. I'm not really sure what to expect, going forward. I do think that he'll offer more in the way of rim protection. It's not as great a rebounding matchup as it used to be when Whiteside faced Washington, but he has had some success against Howard in the past, mixed results over the last few seasons, but he does have some big games mixed in there. So I think that there is still upside for Whiteside. It's just he is on a back-to-back. It's not as much of a cake matchup as it used to be. So at least temper your expectations, a little bit compared to what they would have been if we were still talking about a Marcin Gortat-led front court.
Right, because there will be, of course, Jan Mahimny coming in, either starting or off the bench, but he'll probably, at least in his first game, since Howard's conditioning, I'm sure, isn't there, because they said it was like a sore ass. He thought it was a back. It was basically some sort of nerve that ran kind of from where your tailbone is down to the top of the hamstring, and it kind of went by or through the gluteus maximus.
Literal pain in the ass, Dwight Howard.
Yes, so there we are with that. But so Howard was the big new acquisition. Austin Rivers is now with the Wizards. Jeff Green, who I actually don't mind with the Wizards because, they could always use another forward. And then Troy Brown, the rookie. Anything about Brown at all in the preseason?
He got most of his time with guys that aren't in, like he's not going to be in the rotation.
The fifth unit?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's someone that has some talent. He could be good in a couple of years, but not anything meaningful right now.
All right. So here's my quick Wizards story. I moved out to the DC area, got it going on 12 years now. And I came out here and the Wizards were kind of okay. They had Gilbert Arenas, but I was still a fan of the Seattle Supersonics, who were in their final year after I left the Seattle area. And then they were no more. So I abandoned NBA until the advent of DFS, and I quickly joined back in. And the Wizards were a mess with still had Arenas, still had gun issues with him and Jarvis Crittenden, and JaVale McGee was involved, and I'm forgetting the other guy that ended up getting a big contract in Andre Blatch was involved.
Oh God, yeah.
Just some awful Swaggy P before he was Swaggy P.
JaVale McGee was on that
Swaggy P. This was just a mess. They openly just hated it. It was just dysfunction. And after Arenas went out of town, they brought in Rashard Lewis out of nowhere, trading massively horrid contracts with Orlando. So I just kind of wrote the Wizards off. And then they got Paul Pierce, and they cleaned house, and they got Gortat, and everybody genuinely liked each other, and they had Nene, and it was great. So I was a fan for a couple of years, pledged my allegiance, and then last year, the guys who all liked each other suddenly hated each other. What is it about the DC area where people just hate each other on their sports teams?
Yeah, it's been an interesting few years with this team. Gortat being gone, I think, should help with – I would say should help with the chemistry, but you just brought in Dwight Howard, so who the hell knows?
Yeah, and Beal and Wall are not necessarily fans of each other. Kelly Oubre Jr. wore the FU literally jacket, giant fur coat. I think that was 2 years ago. Go look at his Twitter timeline. He literally wore a coat that was big, the full word, the queen mother of them all, as they say in A Christmas Story, on the back of his fur coat. It was wild. So this team, I don't know, but I'm with them now for better or worse, because clearly the Sonics aren't coming back. What else can we look to from these guys? What do you think about John Wall? Is the conditioning back? Because we saw a couple pictures of him in the offseason that looked like he'd become a bit of a Rastafarian, if you will. And I just don't know what to do. Thomas Satoransky was really good in his absence, but now if Wall's there, if Austin Rivers is there, Beal's in the mix. It's kind of messy here. Markieff Morris, is he going to foul out or not? What's Jeff Green going to do? I don't even know how to read this team because they're a lot deeper because they have had one of the worst benches in the league for 2 years. This bench isn't actually horrible, but I don't know what they're going to do.
Right. So if you're looking at this team for cash games or for any sort of optimal lineup, you basically are starting and ending with John Wall and Bradley Beal because we know that they're going to play huge minutes. We know that the usage is going to be there. The offense is going to run through them. They're the guys that you really want to look to. But on a 3-game slate where the way to attack tournaments is to try and kind of create different game environments and then build your lineups based on those environments. It's worth pointing out that Scott Brooks, the Wizards coach, talked in the preseason about wanting to run more small lineups this season and experimenting with Otto Porter at the 5. I mean, just incredibly small lineups. Now, obviously, if Hassan Whiteside's on the floor, you're not doing that. But if Whiteside, for some reason, is not on the floor and Miami's doing something like playing Kelly Olynyk at the 5, then suddenly you can play small. You can go with, a Keith at 5. You can play Otto Porter at the 5 if you wanted to and give more minutes to Austin Rivers or Kelly Oubre. So in tournaments, if you wanted to create kind of some mini stacks or stacks where, you correlate a Kelly Oubre with, a Kelly Olynyk or Otto Porter with Kelly Olynyk or something like that, where your team would benefit if this game goes small, I think it is a possibility.
All right. That's actually kind of exciting news with Porter there, potentially having the ability to play that positionless basketball. I mean, I love it. I think it's great, but it really causes a lot of havoc when you're trying to do some of these analysis. But that's why you got to go to a place where everybody watches all the games. Adam watches a ton of basketball, gets into the advanced metrics, the analytics. Same with Lofty. We've got Josh Engelman, who watches a gazillion games a night. Fast Eddie Fear, who watches a gazillion games. And then 2, has a buddy that works at one of the film companies and just he types up matchups that he wants to see, and his buddy sends him, emails him video footage of said players going against each other in their last 10 games. So we've got you covered here at Awesemo.com. Oh, yeah, and then, Alex Baker, only the number 1 ranked DFS player in the world. You get to see his cheat sheet rankings as well. So pretty good crew covering you here at Awesemo.com. Use promo code EARLYBIRD, and you'll get your first week free, no charge after that. So check it out. It just lasts for a week, but it's a good time. You get it now. You're going to dive on into Saturday hockey, Sunday NFL. There's a nice big slate Friday. There's a sizable slate on Saturday. So you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck. Give us a try. Use the promo code EARLYBIRD. Get your first week free. On to our nightcap game. We finally get to see the Lakers in Portland. They have not yet played. Looking at Portland first, they did not really make any major changes. No more Shabazz Napier, no more Ed Davis. Those guys are now with, well, at least Davis is with the Nets. I'm assuming Shabazz is, unless he was one of the waived casualties. But the Nets came into the season with a boatload of injuries, so he could be lurking somewhere. They've got Seth Curry, who sat out the majority of last season, if not all of it. He had been with Dallas. Prior to that, he had been with Sacramento. Yes, that is Steph's brother. No, he is not nearly as good as Steph. And then Anthony Cinnamons is their rookie. All right, take a deep breath here because we got to talk about the Lakers. They've had a lot of movement. No more Brook Lopez. He, of course, is with the Bucks. Julius Randle is now a Pelican. Isaiah Thomas and his do we call it his hip still? The dust in his hip socket. They're down there with Denver. That's just going to be a mess there. And the cast of thousands has now joined LeBron James. We have Rajon Rondo, Michael Beasley, JaVale McGee, and Lance Stevenson. Could we not have a bigger collection of head cases? Is this LeBron's is this his masterpiece? Is this his epic? Is he's going to mold these guys into a 4 or 5 seed this season?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this goes. Like, obviously they're going to make the playoffs, but
is LeBron, can you get a technical for punching a guy on your own team? I mean, we saw the restraint with J.R. Smith in that whole situation.
Yeah, it's like he wanted to. It's like he just watched J.R. Smith all season and wanted to challenge himself to do even more. But yeah, it's going to be an entertaining team. They were fun to watch in the preseason. I mean, they were fun to watch last year, and then they brought in more explosiveness. They obviously brought in LeBron. So I think it is a fun team to watch. It's going to be a fast-paced team. It's going to be really good for fantasy purposes, at least for the teams playing against them, because it's going to be a fast-paced game. For the Lakers themselves, it's going to be kind of tough to figure out sometimes, I think, where production comes from. But obviously outside of LeBron, I think Brandon Ingram and Kyle Kuzma are going to be the two main guys from this team. You know, Ingram is capable of doing pretty much everything on the floor at this point. He's really, really talented. And then Kyle Kuzma is one of the better shooters. He's going to be on the floor with LeBron a lot. I expect him to get open looks, and I think he'll have a good season for them. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, when he's healthy too, he's going to play reasonably big minutes, and he's the other shooter that I think can really help LeBron space the floor.
I'm assuming he can play games outside of California at this point.
Yeah, I believe so.
It did say that he is. I did read a blurb saying he is healthy, expected to play. We're making light of the ankle issue. That was because he had a low jack on his ankle because he was could not leave the state of California for some of his off the court transgressions. So looking at Portland, we know that they are more or less staying the same. Last year, you were pretty good at knowing when we should give good consideration to Yusuf Nurkic. Not really anybody for him to foul outside of LeBron, I guess. What do you think about him on this abbreviated 3-game slate?
I like him a lot. He's athletic enough to play in this game. The Lakers have been giving healthy minutes to JaVale McGee in the preseason anyway. I think McGee plays anywhere from 18 to 22 minutes here. I think that Nurkic should be able to stay on the floor, and I think he should be really productive while he's out there. I think you see, 28 to 30 minutes from him, and he's very reasonably priced. I like him quite a bit. The concern, obviously, is that he just fouls LeBron every time LeBron comes to the basket, but I can live with that.
Yes, maybe there'll be if he just has one foul every 2.5 minutes, he can get us what we need and use all 6. What do you think is going to happen this season with Lillard and McCollum? These guys have now played together for, good God, it seems like forever. They never quite get over the hump. I cannot decide if this team is going to make the playoffs or not. One, the West is just so darn deep. And the Spurs, I think, are going to slip dramatically now that they don't have DeJounte Murray. I thought that would kind of keep them in the mix. Now they're going to be fighting for that somewhere between 6th, 7th, and 8th seed, but there's like 8 teams fighting for those 3 spots. What do you think is your overall read on Portland, and who else will we be able to look at? One thing I did want to bring up, Mo Harkless is on a 20-minute limit, at least for this game.
Yeah, I mean, I still expect Portland to be basically what they've been for the last few years because they basically have the same team that they've had. I think it's obviously a really good spot here for Lillard and McCollum. You know that's who the offense runs through. We should expect them to stagger minutes again and have McCollum play with the second unit, which does boost his value a bit. Seth Curry will be the third guard there, expecting 18 to 20 minutes out of him. They're a little bit deeper this year, I think, bench-wise, and that's going to make it tougher to go to secondary options on this team. Like, I think that Evan Turner plays in the low 20s. I think Curry plays around 20. Harkless plays around 20. Zach Collins plays around 20. And it basically just makes it so you can't go to any of those guys with much confidence outside of small slates if you wanted to rotate them in to some of your tournament lineups, but nothing that you're going to be able to prioritize there. Al-Farouq Amino, I think, should play around 30 minutes. I think it's a reasonably good spot for him. Less than $5,000 on DraftKings, pretty appealing.
Yeah, I like him a lot. Not quite getting, especially with Nurkic in town, as many rebounds as he did 2 years ago, but still a light threat for a double-double, which is not bad at all considering he will get the minutes and he will definitely be on the court long enough. Just kind of looking here at some early projections, Damian Lillard is kind of popping a little bit. I think that's kind of aggressive, projecting him for 44 fantasy points, but I don't hate it. I mean, outside of Simmons, Embiid, and LeBron, I mean, he could very well be challenging for that number 4 spot up there with John Wall, Whiteside if he doesn't implode, etc. So there's really about half a dozen really good plays. And that, I think, is going to make for some differentiation here. If you were ranking the higher end guys, and we'll use DraftKings pricing. So we've got Embiid at 9,700, Simmons 95. We've got Lillard at 86, Wall at 82, and then Whiteside's at 7. I'm still going to include him in that group just because he does have some incredible upside. LeBron checks in as the only player in 5 figures. He's at 10,008. If you're building your team, I think you can get 3 of those guys on your team. Which 3 would you look for? And if you're going to go with LeBron, you may have to forego the Philly guys.
Yeah, I think I definitely want one of the Philly guys. I think I would lean towards – I'm just trying to think who else is on the slate position-wise. I think I would lean towards Simmons, especially where he's small forward eligible, because then I can get a Whiteside or a Nurkic for a bunch of upside at center. So I think that Simmons would be the first guy that I get in at 9,500. And then obviously I would try and get LeBron in. If I can't do that, then just getting, one of the Washington guards. Well, I prefer Wall to Beal by a little bit, but it's close enough. And then, Damian Lillard.
Okay. And that's kind of would be where I would go. I'd probably, because I'm a fish, would do a little more to get LeBron in just because. But hey, that's how it goes sometimes. But good point there on Simmons, giving you a little bit of that flexibility because, of course, LeBron can drop to power forward. He's got small forward, power forward eligibility. Simmons is point guard, small forward. And you're right. If you do go to Embiid, you can only put one other center on your roster. And if you're trying to get some upside with Whiteside or a little bit of a discount value with Nurkic at 6,300 or anybody else as you dip on down the pricing sheet, it'll be tougher to do. So there we are. Nice one. All right. Any final thoughts before we get on out of here?
No, just, if you're making tournament lineups, remember to try and create different game environments, whether, you're hand building or using Cruncher, and just run different, crunches with different sets of projections. Just try and create different game environments to maximize your upside. And I think that's the easiest way to win tournaments on these short slates.
All right. With that, we're going to get on out of here. You can follow Adam at ShipMyMoneyDFS. You can get Awesemo at Awesemo_COM. So it's Awesemo.com, but on Twitter you can't have a dot, so instead it's the underscore. And check out some of our YouTube videos. We've got some strategy shows that we do every morning, and those are more or less evergreen content for several of them. We also had a fun show with Chris Spags with Alex Baker, aka Awesemo, and Rod Beard. Spent about 45 minutes talking about the role of NBA beat writers and different things. For those of you that don't know, Rod Beard is the NBA beat writer for the Detroit Pistons. He befriended the DFS community about 2 years ago and has been carrying the banner for us ever since, trying to get the other beat writers to say, hey, these guys, all they want is the knowledge that we have, or we're there looking. If someone's not in the layup line, mention it on Twitter, because that's what they care about. But anyway, you guys can check that out. You can find me at EMACDFS. Promo code EARLYBIRD gets you 1 week free of Awesemo.com. With that, gamers, good luck.